and welcome back to the studio. Today is exercise 4 at long last, the draw modify. Apologies for the delay in this video. It's been a long time coming. It's just a big video to tackle and it's a long one, I'm not going to lie. Let's jump right in. When you open the document, if you double hit the middle mouse button, you will zoom extents to find the following exercises. Now, these exercises are designed to cover everything within the ribbon sections: draw, which I'm hovering over in the top left-hand corner, and modify. With these tools and this document, this should enable you to draw more or less anything in 2D. Fingers crossed if I do this well enough. Well, there's nothing to it. Let's just jump in and zoom into the first exercise, which is align. Now, everything we've covered up until this point has proven that AutoCAD has multiple ways of doing things. So, in this case, we have keyboard entry. For line, we can type line or type L and enter. So that's same for both, I should be clear. Type line, enter, or type L, enter, and the effect will be the same. You'll start the line command. Alternately, you can go up to the ribbon and find the line tool and click on that. That is the equivalent of typing and pressing enter. And this will be the same premise throughout the entire document, so I won't repeat this too much. If I'm typing a keyboard command, I'll say the shortcut out loud and I'll show you where the icon is on the ribbon as well. So I've just clicked on line and it is asking me to draw a horizontal line 70 millimeters long in the X direction. Now, to make this life as easy as possible, I just want you to double check the following things are on. Dynamic input. If you scroll down to the bottom right, you'll find an icon with a crosshair and a small box below it. Just select that for me. And that is all we really need at this point. I'm going to specify the starting point, so I'm going to click anywhere because we don't have anything else to reference to at this point. And I'm going to drag my cursor out. Now you'll notice I have ortho mode on, clipping me to 90 degrees, so I don't have to worry about the axes. If I look at the bottom left, I can see I'm all X is horizontal and Y is vertical. So I'm going to drag to the right and I'm going to type 70, enter. Now you can use your top of keyboard or you can use your right hand side of keyboard if you've got a full keyboard, and then hit escape to end the command, or you can hit enter. Doesn't matter with this particular command. Escape or enter to exit. If you don't hit one of those, the command will presume you want to carry on drawing lines. So just remember, once you've drawn your line, if that's it, enter or escape. So the second part of this exercise is to do the same again. Continue to draw a second line vertically in the Y direction at 90 degrees. That covers it. 82 millimeters long. So I'm going to start the line command. I'm going to go 70. And then since I've got ortho mode on, which is F8 for those who don't remember, I'm going to go 82. Now the final part of this is where we start to look at the command line, and this is where a lot of these commands will get us looking down here. You can see it says line, next point, or close undo. If I click on that or type C, enter, the line will automatically generate the shortest distance between 2 points, creating a triangle. Now note, this is still formed of individual lines. This is only so good when we come to drawing. And as you develop your skills, you'll realize why. But that is essentially what we went to end up with. 70 millimeter line, 70, 82, and then a closure. Next exercise, rectangle. Draw a rectangle 178 by 92. Now, given what we've just learned, we could use a line, 178, 92 up, 178, 92 down. But that's not what we want to do. What there is a rectangle tool, and this is hidden in the top right hand corner of the draw section, or we can type REC and we get the command. If I select where I want to start it, you'll notice that I get 2 dynamic inputs. So what I'm going to do, I want to go 178 wide, so I'm going to type 178, and then I'm going to hit comma, and then I'm going to type 92. And then I get a rectangle 178 by 92. Now the comma is similar to, like, I always think of it like coordinates, 178 comma 92. Now in the line command, if you hit tab, you can change the angle. So we don't want to use tab, we want to use comma. So I'm going to draw a second rectangle. So REC, enter. 250, 125. And you can see it's automatically jumping to the right size. Ah, there you go. That's two reasonable exercises. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to move those out the way, but that's roughly what they should look like. Okay. Circle exercises. So circle, well, that's one of the biggest commands on the draw tab. Well, we can click there, or we can type C, enter. Now, by default, circle will always ask for the radius. So I'm going to click anywhere for the center point. It will always ask for the radius. Now, in this case, I'm being asked to draw a circle with a radius of 30 millimeters. So I'm going to type 30. It's relatively straightforward. No frills or spills there. I'm going to repeat the command. I can do that just by hitting enter in this case. Now I'm going to look down. I'm going to select the midpoint. I'm going to use the same midpoint just to show the difference between radius and diameter. Now, as I look at the command line, I've now got the option for diameter. Again, I can click on that, or I can type D, enter for diameter, and then I'm going to type 30 again, and we'll end up with a polo. Not bad, eh? If you've got the properties pane open, which you can do by typing props, if you highlight the circle, you can still edit the radius and diameter of the circle. This will only work if it is the complete circle and not a trimmed variable. Polygon. So there's two types of polygon in this program. There's inscribed and circumscribed. Inscribed is within a circle. Circumscribed will sit outside a circle. I'll demonstrate this once I've completed this command. If I draw an inside hexagon with a radius of 50 mil, okay, so to get polygon, I can either type pol, P-O-L, enter, or I can select the drop down by rectangle to select polygon. It's hidden away for some reason, not sure why. I'm going to type 6 because that's about sides on a hexagon. I hope, otherwise it's going to be very embarrassing. I'm going to select a center. I'm going to inscribed, and then I'm going to type 50, enter. That's a 50 mil. If I now draw a circle, although this doesn't ask us to, I just want to show what inscribed is. So if I do a radius of 50 on a circle, you can see that that sits inside. So that's inscribed. If I did circumscribed, that would sit on the outside face. I'm just going to drop that into grey. Draw a circumscribed triangle with a 10 mil radius. So same command. Pol command, polygon command. 3 sides this time. And I'm going to use the same center point. And I'm going to do circumscribed. And 10 mil. So 10, 1, 0, enter. And we should end up with something looking like this. If I delete my circle, you should look something like this. The polygon command will go anywhere from 3 upwards. There's no limit. Same process. Base for most draw commands. Where do you want it to start from? Where do you want it to go to? So there's a useful kind of repeatable process in all of these commands. There's only a few variations from this. The arc. Found in the ribbon just next to the circle. We can click on that or type arc, enter. I'm then being asked to click 3 points. Now the arc is a relatively freehand tool. Now you'll notice I've got ortho mode on, so my kind of guideline is stuck and being quite useless. So I'm going to use F8 to turn that off, and suddenly I've got angular freedom. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So my first point was there, my second point was there, my third point was there. I'm just going to repeat that again. First, second, third. And that is the simplicity of a 3-point arc. Not much more to it. When you select the arc, 9 times out of 10, these 2 blue grips will be connected to another piece of geometry. This grip in the center is the radius adjuster, as I like to think of it. And what we can do there is just grab that grip and manipulate that slightly. Now this isn't a precise thing. As you can see, I'm just grabbing that and randomly doing it. Not ideal, but sometimes has to be done if you're trying to create or copy or trace over an image. Construction line and raise. These are really powerful construction lines. Obviously, come back from original technical paper drawings and still used in CAD today to trace ideas across. But my personal favorite has to be the ray command. The ray command is fantastic for sightline studies. And I will now show you the difference between the two. Personally, I use the keyboard commands because of where it's hidden in the ribbon. If you go up to the draw part of the ribbon and just touch on the downward arrow, you will get an extended area of the draw toolset. 3 icons along, there is a double arrowhead, and then the 4th icon along, there is a single arrowhead. The double arrowhead refers to construction line. The 4th icon along with a single arrowhead is ray. I personally prefer to type these. I think it's quicker and easier. So XL, for extra large, will give you a construction line. At this point, it will ask you for the start point, or if you look at the command line, you're given several options. In the command line, you can go horizontal, vertical by default, so X or Y axis, by angle, by bisecting 2 points, or offset. So in this case, by default, construction line will bisect between the 2 points you give it. So I've selected a starting point of here, and I'm going to select a second point here. Had I gone XL and then type H for horizontal, it will only require 1 click to create the construction line because I've already locked it in the horizontal axis. If I repeat that command, but do, press the wrong button, XL, enter, V, enter, I will automatically get vertical. Now, the next time you do the construction line, however, it will revert to the bisecting version. If it doesn't, select bisect and it will. And that's essentially what the construction line is. And if I zoom out, you can see these go on for infinity. Your color of your line may differ slightly because I have a customization which does a bit of automatic coloring, because a construction line is a reference line. It's not meant for actual drawing of objects. However, what you can do is trim the construction line, which will then turn it into a line. Something worth thinking about when you're producing tracings. Deleting those just to keep our drawing space nice and clear. If I type RAY, as in ray gun, you'll now see the difference between a ray and a construction line. You can see where I've selected my starting point, I now end up with a single line. Again, ray. And then I have to select the second point. I don't get an option for horizontal or vertical in this. So it is a bisecting tool. But instantly, if I were to put anything there, you can see that's perfect for sightline studies. So that's what I use that for. Next exercise is G, the revision cloud. The revision cloud is a very, I like to think, I don't know, maybe it is modern day, maybe it's just my view of it. I find it a bit old school. I'm not a huge fan, but it is something that still exists. If we click down again, we get this lower section of drawing tools, and it is the last on the bottom row. When we click on it, or you can type Rev Cloud, I should say. You can click on it or type Rev Cloud. We then get a load of options in the command line, and it's really crucial to have a look at these because this is how we need to make the sheep-like fluff of the revision cloud visible. We need to edit the arc length, which is the first option. So A, enter. And what we're going to do, we're going to put in something reasonable to the size of the drawing that we are doing. So I'm going to type 25. It'll ask you for a minimum and maximum sometimes. And what I'm going to do is click it around this, and then I'm just going to draw that out. And you can see it's auto fluffing for me. If I repeat that command by pressing enter and change the arc length to 10, so that's just under half, and just draw a similar rectangle, you can see that the arcs have all just got a little bit smaller. That's how you adjust the arc and get it a bit more fluffy or less fluffy depending on your Rev Cloud preference. Now I've done the Rev Cloud as a rectangle. You also have the ability to generate from an existing piece of polyline or rectangle, so by selecting polygonal, or you can do a freehand version and you can draw your own fluffy cloud, and it will automatically close when you get near to the other end. But as you can see, it is quite unneat, and there's a lot of data points in there, something I don't particularly like. That's essentially a Rev Cloud. There's not much else to it. Personally not a fan, but totally get why it exists. Splines. Exercise H, I should say, and splines. Splines, you can see the instant reaction. Splines are fantastic for artistic and organic objects. However, when it comes to manufacturing and CNC, splines are the devil, because what we have to do is convert them into lines and arcs to make it machinable. So splines are really only very good for artistic. We, as engineers, as carpenters, we have to convert them quite a lot. Don't be afraid of them. They're quite useful for doing breaks in objects. If you're trying to show an end of a floor where there's uses for them, but just think about why you're using it before you use it. But essentially, this exercise is a little bit wrong. It's a little depending on which version of AutoCAD you're running. If you're running the latest or in the last 5 years, you don't have to press the return key 3 times. Again, we're just going to go to the draw section, click that drop down, and there's 2 versions, Spline and Spline TV. Select the first one, and all we're going to do is click 5 points. Again, auto mode off, and what we can do is just create a nice organic shape, and at that point we can press enter, and that is in essence a spline. And you can see why a CNC machine would have difficulty. You know, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data points there, and a CNC machine would interpret that as, if I just do the line command, the CNC machine would do just lines, and it would ignore all of those. So I just highlight that. I can highlight the right line. My mouse is just frozen, and just go to red. So the CNC machine would look at that red line, which is a little bit tricky. So splines are not suitable for CNC. We want to use arcs and lines, but they are fantastic for organic shapes like this. Again, in the same boat, moving on to exercise I, we have the ellipse. Ellipses are fantastic, and we all know what an elliptical shape is, but again, it suffers the same issues for CNCing, but it is still an existent tool within AutoCAD. We can either type EL, enter for ellipse, or if we take our cursor up into the ribbon, it is the second icon down on the right hand side of the draw area of the ribbon. I'm going to click on that, and it is going to ask us to create an ellipse with a major axis of 100 mm and a minor axis of 50 mm. Command line will want to know half the minor axis length. So if I turn F8 on again, because there's no reason for it not to be on at this point, I'm going to type 100, and then I'm going to type half the distance, which is 25. I get a shape like this. Now if I do the same again, major axis of 100, minor axis of 50, doing something weird and wonderful. Never really comfortable with this command. I sometimes get some weird and wonderful reactions from it. I'm just going to run through that again just to be sure of what I'm showing you. Major axis of 100, minor axis of 25. So you should end up with an egg like this. And if I do 150, I end up with a circle. So that's why we do half. Although it doesn't register as a circle when you select it. Ellipses, again, we can use the blue grips to manipulate, so I can go 50. You might end up with something like this, depending on how your computer, depends what version and how it wants to abuse you. Again, if you highlight an object and look in the properties pane, you can see my major radius is 100, my minor radius is 50. So in fact, you should end up with a shape like this and not a shape like this. It seems my computer just wants to confuse me today. The point command. Now, I discovered something really, really interesting about this most recently when covering this with some students. I primarily type, so I don't really go near the top ribbon unless I need to. So I would type PO, enter for a point, and it will give me a single point, and I press enter or spacebar to repeat, and I will just keep clicking and repeating. If I go and do that command from the ribbon, if I go into the draw tab and click the drop down, the crosshair one, fifth one along in the drop down is the point command. If I click on that, it gives me multiple points, and we'll carry on doing points until I hit escape. I don't have to repeat the command. It's an interesting little quirk I have discovered in AutoCAD. I'm sure that's by demand, but how often do I need to do a pepper spray of points? It's very rare. I generally use them for pickups and marking points on a plan. Go figure. So the PO with a single enter and click to repeat seems fine for me. Sometimes and occasionally companies will want a slightly different point style compared to their competitor just to show it's theirs. What we can do is change the point style and size of the point by typing this unique command. Unfortunately, I have not found the replacement editor within 2021 yet. So what we need to do is type DDP, Delta Delta Papa, type, as in the keyboard, enter. This will bring up a dialog box, which is all about the point style. And what we can do is change the point styles to these pre-selected ones. Note, however, this will affect every point within this drawing only. It will only affect this drawing only. If we look down at the bottom, we can change the point size. We've got two options, set relative to screen or set to absolute units. If we set this to relative to screen and I set that at 25%, the points will automatically scale relative to my zoom. So as I zoom out, you can see the point size. That's quite irritating, to be fair. And when you zoom back in, you end up with this hash of mess. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back to DDP type. I'm going to change that back to absolute units. And I like to have them around 10 to 15. And I'm just going to hit enter. So I do that quite quick. Again, if I change the point style, quite easy. Enter to repeat. I'm just going to change them back. So I have no reason to change them. To be honest, 9 times out of 10, I don't change my point style. It's very rare that I'm ever asked to change my point style. If for a project I have to use a particular point, I might draw that point by hand. So I can draw a circle that is 5 and I can draw a line. That will do what I want it to do, and I can rotate that, which we'll come to in the next row of commands. But you can draw your own point, so you don't have to use the built-in points. It's just a convenience. Moving on, we go into the hatch command. Now I have a very, well, I'm sure many CAD users will have their varied experiences with hatch. It is well known to crash our computers and often close the drawing and leave us with nothing. So I have a, how would I describe it? I have a train of thought. It's not particularly polite, but I will try and put this in the polite way. Get in and get out of there. Essentially, what I would recommend is starting the hatch command, which you can either do by selecting the bottom right-hand icon in the drawer and the ribbon, or you can type H, or you can type hatch, enter, and it will ask you to select an internal pick point. Instantly, you'll notice that the ribbon has changed. It will bring up one of these smart ribbons, which is all about the hatch command. What I recommend and what I want you to do at this point is completely ignore that and pretend it hasn't happened. And then I want you to look at what we want to fill. So we want to fill the 4 quadrants with this particular hatch at a scale of 2. Don't worry about the hatch type or the scale. What we need to focus on is just filling the quadrants. Now you can see the computer's getting a bit tetchy and it's trying to fill any bounded area that it can find. So this is what we want it to avoid. This is what crashes the computer because it's going to be constantly looking for bounded areas. So I'm going to quickly hover, quadrant, click, quadrant, click, quadrant, click, quadrant, click. Now as I click, you can see the quadrant is going blue to say indicate that it's selected. And then what I want to do is hit enter. I don't care about what it looks like. I don't care if it's solid. I just want to get in and get out. Because once you've done that, the computer's done the hard thinking. It's looked for the boundaries. It's not worrying about redrawing anything. It's just going, okay, is that it? Okay, great. What we can then do is click on the hatch or highlight and select the hatch, and it will still bring up the hatch editor. We can do all the hard work afterwards when the computer doesn't have to think about it. And I can change my hatch, so I can see it's already in ANSI 31 by default. And what I'm going to do is change the scale. So what have we actually got in this ribbon? We've got pattern. Yep, we're using a pattern. What color would we like the lines? So here we have the option to change the color. Below that, we can change the infill color between the lines, which generally I don't do because we like to save on ink when we're printing or if we're printing. We can add a transparency, which is quite useful. We can change the angle. Ooh, fancy. And finally, in the bottom corner, similar to this previous command or the command itself, we've got a little scale icon. And what I'm going to do, it's currently set to 15 and we want a scale of 2. So I'm going to change that down to 2 and just hit enter. Now you can see the computer did that with no worries, no hiccups. It didn't throw a fit. It's fine. Now, depending on the power of your machine might just go, yeah, that's easy. No problem. What you're worried about. Good, great. Personally, doesn't matter how powerful the machine is, how modern, how glitch-free your computer is. My personal recommendation is get in, get out. Hatch, 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 hatch. Get out of there, come back and edit. Purely because I just know that Hatch is glitchy, and I know that if I try and do it any other way, particularly with complex geometry, it will crash and you will lose work. That is 5 years of experience of Hatch in less than 5 minutes. So, yeah, go for it. That's how I like it. Right, that is essentially the drawing tools of AutoCAD in their simplest form. All in one row. I've deleted the construction lines, so that's why there's a blank box. But essentially, you should end up with a line looking something like this. Cool. Let's move on to the next row. So the next row is all about the modify section of the home ribbon affair, whatever you'd like to call it. So I'm looking at the second section of the home tab, which is modify. Now we've done some of this. We've covered some of the actions such as move in previous commands. So this shouldn't be too horrific. So the first thing we need to remember about any movement is that we want to have our object snaps on. So we're going to look down at the bottom right hand corner and look for an icon that has a square with a little square in the top left hand corner, or press F3 to flash it on and off. And it wants to be on. This is your object snaps. Now I personally recommend having all but tangent nearest apparent intersection and parallel on. So just to be clear, I think my face is blocking it again. I'm just going to disappear myself for a minute. I recommend all to be ticked except for the last 4. Bring myself back so you can see my ugly mug. Move or copy. So now that we've got the object snaps on, we're going to highlight the object. We can use green, we can use blue, we can use lasso, whatever we fancy. And I'm going to right click, move, select my midpoint, geometric center or circle center, and I'm going to use my geometric midpoint again. This is something that should be really familiar to us from the previous few exercises and shouldn't be any major surprise. You'll notice that I'm still using select right click. I don't ever use the move and the ribbon, and I very rarely use M on the keyboard, enter. It's just quick and easy on the mouse. Why change what works? All right, I'm going to pan across. Oh, that's interesting. I've noticed, oh, that is A and B. I was about to say, I'm missing B. I'm not missing B. Oh, I did miss part of the command. I apologize. Move the circle inside the square. Well, we did that. Make 2 copies of the circle square and put them anywhere in the square. So what I'm going to do, again, highlight and select, since I almost missed that. Right click, copy selection. We'll cover that again. That was quite quick. Highlight both. Right click, copy selection. I'm going to select a nice object snap. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to create 2 copies like so. And I'm just clicking on the corners, making sure I get a good green snap. And it's nice and clean. And we should end up with a slight pattern like so. So that's exercise B. Exercise C. The mirror command. Fantastic in so many ways. So similar principle. We're going to select our object. We're going to select our modifier. So I'm going to select. Now I've got 2 options again here. I can go up to the ribbon and select mirror, which is dead center of the modify tab. Or I can start typing. As soon as I hit MI, you can see that's the shortcut for mirror, or I can carry on typing to type the whole thing, and then hit enter. Now it'll say specify first point and mirror line. So we've put in this mirror line for you. So I'm going to click the end point because I know that's accurate. I could use the midpoint, but I'm actually going to use the other end point, and it's really important that we do. If I turn ortho mode off, you can see instantly the mirror line is dynamic. So we need to be really precise on where we select because AutoCAD is a precision tool and we are trying to do precise movements. I'm going to click once more and then the computer is going to ask me, would I like to delete the original? In this case, no, I would not. I am quite happy and now I have a handed pair of, or mirrored pair of L shapes. That's as simple as it is with mirror. I select, I do the command, and then I have the choice of whether to delete the original. Moving on to exercise D. Hopefully everyone's keeping up. We're going quite quick, but I'm trying to make it not too long. So hang in there. You're doing really well, I'm sure. Jumping back to exercise D, we are to create an offset. Create a 12mm offset of the pentagon inside and a 25mm offset of the pentagon outside. Sounds pretty reasonable. Again, same principle. We can type offset, or we can go up to the ribbon, and as you saw as I was typing, it gives us the symbol. This symbol has changed in 2021 or 2020, I think it was. I think 2019, it actually had a second, forgive the phrase, nipple. It looks slightly awkward, and I believe personally, AutoCAD, it's still, though it's representing what it's doing, could it be a better shape? Yeah, not the best shape in the world. I won't dig myself too deep in that one. But essentially, I type it, so I'm going to type offset, enter. First question it's going to ask me is, what would you like to offset by? Same principle. If I'd selected the object and typed offset, it will ask me what do I want to offset by. Doesn't matter if you select first or don't select first. I'm going to do the inside first, so I'm going to type 12, enter, and then I either then need to select the object and then hover my cursor on the direction I want it to go. Now you can see the blue is the original, and as I hover my cursor inside and outside, it is dynamically showing me an option. I can now click to create that, and then it will ask me what object do I now want to offset. Now if I wanted to continue offsetting in, I could click that object and I could keep carrying on with 12. In this case, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to repeat the command by pressing enter, and I'm going to type 25 because I need to do the outside offset as the exercise says. I'm going to click the geometry, click, and then I'm going to move my cursor to the outside and just click again. Hit escape to conclude and clear the command. And that is as simple as offset is. We can carry on offsetting as many times as we want. What you will notice, I'm just going to do this for reference. I'm going to type offset and I'm going to do 25, not worrying too much. I can offset 25. When the offset gets too big, it will indicate the offset's too big by hovering this measurement line on it, and it will show cannot offset object. Hopefully that is pretty self-explanatory as to why. Well, exercise E. Well, I've already done that a few times through this exercise, so I apologize for not actually telling you how to do this. Previously, you had to type erase. Well, hopefully 9 out of 10 of you will hopefully get this straight off the bat. I'm going to use the blue to select the circles because we've covered that in a previous exercise. And what I'm going to do, I've got this key on my keyboard called delete, just to the right of enter. Now I'm just going to click that. I don't have to use the AutoCAD erase command in any way, shape or form. There is a delete key. It is there to be used and abused. Now, while we are here, there are two keys, or there's one command and one keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut I'm sure we're all aware of from everyday computing life. Control Z or Control Z, depending on where in the world you are from. Control Z will undo. Now what Control Z will do is actually go back through your zooms and your actions. As you can see it zooming out, zooming in, as I did. If I go to erase these circles again, so I'm going to use the blue again, I'm going to hit delete, and then I'm going to zoom in and out a few times. I'm going to move across here, I'm going to zoom in and out. Now if I do Control Z, it's going to do those actions. Sometimes it will do the objects if you've not done anything meaningful. But there is one command that is rarely known of and is rarely used to my knowledge, and that is oops. It's a built-in command to AutoCAD, and it will undo the last deleted physical object. Yes, you heard me right. It will ignore all movements, all selections. It will just undo the last delete. So if I delete those, and then what I'm going to do is move those, and then I'm going to delete those. If I do, oops, it will only bring back those last three. It will not bring back the previous two. It will only bring back the last delete. and that's why it's called oops. Didn't mean to do that. Erasing circles and returning circles, all in one small package. So oops, delete key, and Control Z or Z, depending on your locale. Moving on to F. Rotate the flag 90 degrees anti-clockwise in order to stand it up with pride. What we can do here is select the object. We have so many options on rotate. We've actually got 3. We can either go up to rotate in the ribbon. We can type RO for rotate in the keyboard command line, or my personal preference, right click, rotate. At this point, it will ask you for a center or a base point, center of axis of rotation. Let's just call it base point. It's a lot shorter and I don't sound crazy. I'm going to select that. Now, because we're doing 90 degrees, there is a really quick and easy way to do this. I can just press F8, turning ortho mode on, and just drag the flag in the y-axis direction or up the screen and click, because I know that is physically 90 degrees no matter what. That is the quickest way to get that flag up. Now, if I undo those actions, right click, rotate. If I don't have ortho mode on, rotation of 90 degrees. Now, what you might find, and I find it incredibly infuriating, because it depends on what axis the original object was drawn in, and then the angle if you type 45. So if I go 45 now, let's see, I want it to go to the right. It might go to the left, I'm not sure. Might go to the left, there you go. And what I would then do is then go minus 90, and then it would go. Depends on the orientation the thing was drawn in. It will go the angle you tell it to. It might just not go the direction you want it to. So you've got to think about negative angle and positive angle. So when you first, or when you continue rotating something, as I fluffed my words there, you might just keep an eye on as you rotate stuff. I personally use something that we're going to use in a couple of exercises from now, which I will show you. I won't jump to that now. There is a better way of rotating, or a referenced way of rotating, which is far better. So I will flag it when we get there. Next, exercise G is the scale command. We have drawn a nice little cat who wants to be a lion. What do we want to do? So we want to scale this 5 times. Okay, so again, 3 ways of doing this. We can highlight, well, always highlighting the object, or selecting the command first. Doesn't particularly matter. I always try and select first. Hit the scale in the ribbon, or type scale SC, or we can right click and use scale in our quick. So 3 options again. I'm going to right click and hit scale. I'm going to use the bottom left hand corner of this exercise box as my base point. And as I move my cursor, you can see I have dynamic control of the scale of this little cat who wants to be a lion. Now, the computer's now asking me for a specific scale factor. Now I want to make this 5 times bigger, so I'm going to type 5, enter. Now the thing to think about is the scale works in decimals. So 1 is 100%, 5 is 500%. So when we're thinking about theatre and theatre scales, 1 to 25 is actually 4%, so that's 0.04. 1 to 15 is 0.6667 roughly, so that's why 1 to 15 is a little bit awkward when it comes to scaling in the model space. But big flashing alerty thing here, we always draw in 1-to-1 in model space, always. There's very few occasions in which we scale something in model space to 1 to 25, and one of those might be you're making a model box and you're taking an existing set that you've drawn at 1-to-1 to then model. Always think while you're scaling in the model space if it's to a model box or paper space. You do the paper spacing scale in the paper space. Everything is 1-to-1 in the model space to what you actually want to produce. It's really important. Next exercise is H. Now this is something that a lot of people have struggled with over the years, it took me a year to get my head around this, and hopefully my year of torture will be 5 minutes of your torture. Let's try it. So stretch is a unique command. You do not select the object first. With stretch, we either type S, enter, or use the ribbon. So I'm going to use the ribbon just to mix things up. And it's going to ask me to select object. Now, instinctively, you are going to want to select the object as we have done in every other exercise up until now. No, we do not want to do that. This is where it gets unique. And this is why we always use, I think green, you can go blue. It's green, always a green selection with stretch. What I want you to do is imagine a cake. And this square cake has been beautifully baked, but we just need a little bit more because we've got a party coming. So what we're going to do, we're going to select it, but the left-hand line on my screen is going to be a knife going through the cake. It's going to say, is that all you want to select? I'm going to go yes. And what that then does is allow me, I'm going to turn F8 on to make sure it's square. If I drag up, you notice I get parallelogram. If I drag to the right, you can see I'm still square. What it does, all I'm done, I've cut the cake in half, I'm pulling the end out, and the cake is magically filling in the mid bit. I know, I'm cake obsessed, what can I say? I'm going to drag this out, and what it's going to ask me to do, in fact, it's asked me to do it in the Y direction, so I'm going to hit escape to cancel. I'm going to go stretch, S, enter, and I'm going to go across. So in this case, the bottom line is my knife going through the cake. I'm going to hit enter to confirm that's all the objects. At this point, I could use an object snap, or I can use anywhere in the space, doesn't matter. I'm just going to click over here so it's nice and clear so you can see the movement. My cake has been cut. I'm dragging it up in the Y direction. Now, you'll notice there's not giving me an option to put in numbers. That's fine. Tell the computer who's boss. 5, 0, enter. And that is stretched by 50 mil. I promise you it has. If you do the stretch command and you select the whole object, what you'll do is it will just act like a move command. So it's really obvious when it's gone wrong. All right, second part of the exercise, change the shape of the triangle by stretching point A 50 mil in the X direction. So the X direction is to the right of our screen. I'm going to use S, enter, because I'm a lazy person, and I'm going to highlight just going past the A, cutting it mid on the right hand side of the triangle and about a quarter on the bottom line of the triangle. And then I'm going to hit enter to confirm the selection. In this case, I'm going to use the corner of the triangle because I'd like to grab it so I can see physically what it's doing. Make it feel as if I'm pinching the corner of that cake. And I'm just going to drag that out, and then I'm going to type 5, 0, enter. And stretch is as simple as that. It's hard to believe it took me a year. If you can master stretch, it is so powerful for getting you out of jail on some drawings. It is amazing. But the crucial thing is when you type in those numbers that you are accurate. You are hitting 5, 0, enter. You're not doing 5, 0, point something, something dark side. Or, I'm just going to use stretch very quickly. You're not doing something like about there. So I have no idea how much that moved by. That was silly. Yeah. Moving on to our next one. Trim extend. Now, big caveat on this one. Depending on which version of AutoCAD you are using to how this will react. If you are using AutoCAD 2021 as I am here, the command is slightly different. AutoCAD and Autodesk listened to the community and updated the command to what I like to call super trim mode by default. For those of you using older than 2021, I will quickly talk you through that process. Essentially, when you used to do trim, you would do TR enter, select a line, and then select enter, and then select the lines you want to trim to that line. It's a very long process. It sounds long. I'm talking about it and it sounds long. What you could do is do TR enter, enter, or type, or click on the ribbon trim and then press enter again, and it would enter something called super trim, which is what 2021 does by default. So I'm going to do TR enter in 2021, or if you're pre-2021, TR enter, enter. and it will enter something called, I like to refer to as Super Trim. Super Trim is fantastic. What it does, it uses the computer's brain, and as I hover over a line, you can see that line's graying out, and it will automatically work out where you want to trim that line to. So I hover on the right, it will trim to the outside of the box, hover on the left. That's great. If I hold down Shift, puts me into reverse, I can extend. Now you notice I'm just hovering over, I'm not actually clicking, so it's not actually doing anything. What this challenge is asking you to do is make number 1 look like number 2. So you can see we've trimmed some bits, we've extended some bits. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold down Shift while I'm still in the same command, and I'm just going to click. And as I click, as I move to the right, it will then tell the line to extend to the next nearest line. I'm going to the next line. So the computer's doing all the work here. I've released Shift, and now I can trim. I could do multiple lines at a time by using the boxes. You can see there. And then I can keep clicking, and I need to trim, and I need to trim, trim, trim. And it's as simple as that. Now I can hit Escape, or I can hit Enter to get out of that command, or conclude that command, depending on what phrase you want to use. And it is simple as that. It is Shift to extend, and click to trim. A lot less than having to flick between 2 different commands to do a very similar task. As we move into the next exercise, K, I'm just going to pan this slightly across because these are very similar exercises. I'm going to, hopefully I've zoomed in enough, about there. I'll zoom in properly in a minute. Chamfer and fillet. They're very similar in principle. They're doing very similar things. Obviously one's radial, one's by distance. But what I want to highlight is that if you can remember one, the other one should come very easily. So I'm going to focus on chamfer first. Square has been chamfered in one corner. Repeat the chamfer on the other 3 corners. Fine, makes sense. By default, AutoCAD sets everything to 0. So if I go to chamfer, which is, if I go into the modify in the ribbon, where it says fillet, if I click the drop down, there's chamfer there, and it will change to chamfer. Or I can type CHA, enter. If I try and chamfer this, it will do nothing. So I've done my chamfer command, and it'll say click my first line, click my second line. Nothing happened. That's pretty rubbish. Okay, what do I need to do? Repeat the command. So CHA, enter. Look at the command line. We've got lots of options this time. Undo, polyline, distance, angle, trim, method, multiple. Distance, D. So D, enter. It'll ask me specify first chamfer distance. So in this case, we've got 25. Now, there's 2 ways I can do this. I can type 25. So I've done 25, enter. And now it's asking me for the second chamfer distance. So you can do unequal chamfers. Now, because I want an equal chamfer, I just hit enter again. But just as a learning opportunity, I'm going to specify the second chamfer distance by using 2 existing drawing points. So you can see I've got a dimension here. So I can actually click and click if I don't know the number, and it will put that into the computer and work out that that's 25. So you can either tell it by typing, or you can tell it by using existing geometry to define the distance. And now, when I select my first line, and when I select my second line, you can see it's already previewing for me. When I click on the second line, it will then do the chamfer or complete the chamfer. Enter to repeat. And this time, because you've already programmed a distance, it will remember the last distance set. There is an interesting feature and little known feature of chamfer. If you actually set chamfer distance to 0, so I'm going to go CHA, enter, D, enter, and set that to 0. If I select these 2 lines, normally you would extend one and then extend the other and then trim the other one where you've overextended one. It's quite a long process. What you can do is select those 2 lines, and it will revert those 2 lines to meeting together. Little known use. It's brilliant. And then again, we can go chamfer distance, and it will remember the last distance used. So in this case, now I've set it back to 0. If I wanted to carry on doing 25 mil, I'd have to go 25, 25, and then select my lines again. But in essence, we should end up with something looking like this in the chamfer box. Fillet is very similar. So again, up in the ribbon, same kind of combined areas, fillet and chamfer. I'm going to select fillet, or we can type F, enter. In this time, we're not setting a distance, we're setting a radius. So we're going to look down in our command line, and you can see that instead of distance, we've got radius. And interestingly, it's already come out with 25. I wonder if that's been informed intelligently from chamfer. Who knows? Possibly. I'm then going to click the first line, click the second line, and then enter to repeat. And repeat as many times as you must. Again, little known fact about fillet. If you set the fillet radius to 0 and do the same principle on this triangle, you can have the same effect as the chamfer did by returning the triangle to its original state. Pretty damn cool. And that is essentially fillet and chamfer. So chamfer, C-H-A, enter, D, enter. Fillet, F, enter, R, enter. Chad and the French. Possibly slightly politically incorrect. I apologize. My way of remembering it. And finally, in the modify tools, we have the array command. Now, there are actually 3 types of array, and I do recommend that you play with these. But this particular exercise is to show you a rectangular array. Now, again, similar to the hatch, there is a caveat that I would like to share with you. If we use the array command, what I thoroughly recommend, purely for stability, is to do the command and then get out of there. Because if we type the command, we will get asked to select the objects, enter, what type of array, rectangular, path, or polar. I'm not doing a rectangular one in this case. And then I will hit enter, and it will ask me, do I want to erase the defining objects? Yes. I will not worry about the numbers, offsets, any of that. In this case, I just want to create the array. I'm not concerned with numbers at this point. I can edit those later, similar to the hatch. Now, if I select the array, I'm presented with another smart part of the ribbon where it will change. And here, when the computer does not have to think so much, I can do all the fancy pants stuff that I want to do. So in this case, I want 10 rows. So I've got a row section. I'm going to type 10, enter. And then I need a offset of 20. Now, offset is now called between. AutoCAD has varied this over the years, so I'm going to change the between to 20. And then columns 10, and again with an offset of 20. So I'm going to type 10 in here, and then I'm going to type 20 in the between again. And instantly, I've been very easily able to edit the array to my heart's content. And again, I can carry on doing this, and the computer's not going to have to strain or think too much, because all of that initial geometry has been thought about. It makes life easy. So do the array, get out, erase the defining object if you want to erase the defining object, and then come back and do the edits to the numbers that you want. You will find it far more stable and far easier to work with, particularly if you're using something like the path array, as it's using other geometry to define its path through your project. And if it's particularly complex, it's a lot to think about. Ladies and gentlemen, well done. We are doing really, really well. We are through the second row, which is all to do with modify. And we are now on the home straight. And just looking at my timer, we're at 53 minutes. And if you are still here, thank you. My voice is going, so I'm just going to have a quick drink. As we head into the last line, this last line should be really quick and easy. We won't be here much longer, I promise you. This is about combining all of the information we have done in these first 2 tasks. So I will fly through these, but do feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. Right, let's jump straight back in on the home straight. There are little notes on the side. All left-hand set state bar turned on except polar and object snapped. So don't worry too much. Everything you've had on to this point will still be on. And in theory, we should have no problems doing these. Mirror with object snap. So we know how to do that. Select the object. Find whichever preference of mirror you wish to use. So I'm going to use keyboard. Select the endpoint. endpoint, resource object, no. Fantastic, there's a bottle of wine waiting for us. As we move to exercise B, draw lines with objects. Now this surprises me. People always call me and go, is that right? This is quite straightforward. I'm going to do L for a line, enter. Midpoint is green triangle to green triangle, green triangle to green triangle. And I've just pressed enter between drawing the lines. I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to hit click, enter to cancel the command, enter to repeat the command so I can draw a crosshair. Otherwise, I'll end up with a line like this, which I don't want, which you could do and then delete afterwards. It's up to you. How you draw is your choice. There are so many ways to draw. Wonderful. As we go to exercise C, rectangle with object snaps. Okay, so REC, enter. Or if you go to the ribbon in the draw, it's now hidden by polyline, so I need to go rectangle. I'm going to hover around the outside of the circle to reveal the center of the circle. I'm going to hover around the circle again to reveal the center. And I just need to click between those two bits of geometry. And it is done. It is as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. As we move forward, we hit the arc using endpoints. Fantastic. So we're going to use 1, 2, and 3. So arc command up in the draw tab. First point, second point, third point. Easy peasy. Exercise E, offset with object snaps. Two ways to do this at this point. If we know the distance between this point and this point, we could just tell it to offset by distance, or we can let the computer do the work for us and we can go offset. Now it's going to ask us to specify the offset distance. Now, the easiest way to do this is to select any one of these endpoints on the framing lines. So I'm going to select this one and I'm going to move my cursor across, and this is why the perpendicular object snaps on down in the object snaps, F3, and I can then click and the computer has now measured that for me. And what I can then do is click the perimeter I want to offset. I don't want to go out, I want to go in, and it will perfectly match up with these lines. Key note, do not try and measure on the arc, because obviously the arc has got different consistencies because you could end up measuring at an angle. So you could end up going there, or you could end up going there. It could be a whole horrific mess. Choose something that is perpendicular, choose something that is square, and you will always get the right answer. Exercise F. Now this one's actually really, really useful. So I am going to slow down slightly for this. Previously, up until this point, we've done circles simply by doing their radius or diameter. There is a lot of circle types you're able to use in AutoCAD, and I'm actually going to just go up to the ribbon and click the drop down underneath the circle, and you can see that we have, oh lordy, 6 options. Oh, too many. Center radius is default. Diameter, we can just type D-enter when we're in the radius one, so it doesn't really matter. I have never used a 2-point circle. I have never used a 3-point circle, so I won't try and preach about those. And I've never used a tan circle, but I have used a tan radius circle. And you're going, Ollie, what is a tan radius circle? What that is essentially doing, and why it is really pertinent to us in the theatre industry, well, certainly for me, is when I am working out tracks, like stage tracks, because I have a wheel that might sit on a rail. And what I can do, I can either click on this, or I can use C enter, and then first thing I can ask is go T enter for tan radius. I'm going to click on it, and it will ask me specify a point on the line. So I'm going to say that's my first line, that's my second line, and what radius do I want? So I'm going to go 50 mil, and what it will do, it will perfectly sit that in the groove, in the channel, perfectly. Now, why is this powerful for tracks? If this were your rail, and this, if I just rotate this, so I'm going to rotate this 108 degrees, and what I'm going to do, don't worry too much, I'm just going to do this quickly so you can see. If I did that, and then I trim those, and said, that is the tube, let's do an offset, oh, cheeky offset, 5 mil, yeah. That's your rail tube in your stage floor, and that's your V-groove wheel. You can now perfectly work out the tolerance to the floor of your V-groove wheel and how it will sit and whether it will clash. Brilliant command. Wish I'd known that about 4 years ago. See, it's the little things. You're picking up and learning all the time. Love this command. This is great. Moving on, exercise G, polygon with object snaps. Create 50mm radius circumscribed octagon with the circle as a center. Fantastic. We can do some circumscribe. So I'm going to go POL enter or select polygon. I want an octagon, so that's 8 sides. I'm going to hover around the circle so it shows its center point. Little red crosshair. Love it. Circumscribed. And then using the object snaps, you can see instantly I've got the quadrant of the circle, because a circle gives us quadrants. And then I just click. And that is a circumscribed octagon, almost looking like the top of a bolt head, maybe. Excellent. Moving on to next, we come back to another opportunity for us to practice stretch, but in a slightly different way. In this case, what we can do is use the existing geometry to do the distances so we don't have to type anything in. So remembering, selecting the stretch command or S enter, we're going to slice that cake. We're going to confirm that's the cake we want to slice. And I'm going to use the top corner of this, top right hand corner, and I'm going to drag that to the next corner, which then marries up with number 2, how we like it. Now in this case, I need to stretch 3 objects. So I'm going to select stretch again or hit enter. I'm going to slice the cake down the middle, just like that. Doesn't matter if I select it multiple times. I'm just showing you so you can see I'm pausing for you to have a look. And then I'm going to click that, enter to confirm, and I'm going to use the midpoint because my point is directly underneath. And then I'm going to drag downwards to the center of the point and click once again. And look at that. Wasn't that so easy? Stretch command is nailed. Exercise I. So this was the one I flagged earlier with the rotation. I'm going to wave my hands going, this is the one, this is the one. As I'm trying to keep my energy levels going as well as yours. You're doing really well. So I've realized this is getting quite long. We're going to rotate with object snaps. What can we do in this case? F8, because we're going to rotate 90 degrees. Why type it when we can just get the computer to do it for us? Right click, rotate, center point the circle, and I'm just going to do that. Why do we have to make it any more complicated? It's already complicated enough. Now this is the key. This is the one. This is the one I really like. So rotate with object snaps. This is rotate reference. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the truck from AB line to AC line. What we can do, select the object, rotate. We're always going to select a base point. So that's going to be my center axis. Now you can see as I move my cursor, you've got this yellow line. If I click now, I'm going to do it just so you can see. Oh, no, didn't do what I wanted to do. Rotate, base point. And if I turn off F8, must remember to turn. See, F8 always on and off, on and off. You can see that my truck is off angle to my yellow line because it automatically assumes I want to go in the x-axis. So if I go AC, you can see my truck isn't going to land where I want it to. That's no good. And I'm not going to do that because that's inaccurate, because that's just wrong. So what we want to do, select the object, right click, rotate, base point. Now you'll notice down at the bottom we've got a couple of options, copy and reference. Well, hopefully copy is relatively sensible, it will copy it, and reference is the one that we want. Now, once we click on reference, it will ask us specify the reference angle. Now we could tell it by numerical. I don't know. So we don't want to do that because that's what we want the computer to do. That's why the computer's here. So I'm going to select the same. This is my top tip. This is how I like to do it. I use the same central axis. So I'm going to select A again. And then this is my line. So you can see my yellow line is now going to be, and I'm going to select the endpoint by B. And now my truck is perfectly on my rotational line, rotating on A. And now all I have to do is select the endpoint at C to get my truck to the correct location. Now this is really powerful. If I repeat that command, one thing that is worth noting, if you do want to copy an object, once you've selected your base point, you can do a reference, a copied reference, but you have to do copy, then reference, because once you're in reference, you'll notice in the command line, you cannot copy. So instantly I've got This is really powerful for set movements, perhaps on a revolve. Leave that thought with you. Spline, that useful command. SPL, enter. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, enter. Again, the return key, depending on which version of AutoCAD you are using, it's a spline. And this final exercise in this series should be so straightforward. Sorry for zooming in and out because I was just so happy. We've got to the end. This should be so straightforward, we shouldn't even have to think about it. We can highlight the object, right click, copy selection. I'm going to use the bottom left hand corner of the square to ensure that my circle is exactly the same in each one. And depending on how you want to do it, you could just click and copy like this. You could do 4, then mirror. You could, in theory, array, but then you'd have to do the maths on the centers of the squares. So copy is just as easy. And once you have done that, double click your middle mouse button and look at all that fine work you have done, everything we have learned. And that is exercise 4. I am really excited to complete that with you as I lose my voice. So thank you for joining me on this journey from zero to drawing these. This is the final of my already existing templates that I use to teach students. I will be building upon these documents with individual specific topics such as dimensioning, multi-leaders and text, which you're going to ask me about, I have no doubt. But these exercises should give you enough to start drawing your sets, your ideas, your concepts in an accurate way. And this is not something that's going to come overnight. You need to practice. It is something that you will build upon. Don't be afraid to keep a copy of this and occasionally go back to it and test yourself. I think I've probably done this exercises more times than I can think. And each time I always think, oh, that's changed in AutoCAD. I never even thought about that. I actually need to remind myself of how to do that. So this is why I love these set of exercises, originally created by the amazing Adam Taylor. I must give him credit. They are a brilliant set of documents, and even I was taught with them many, many moons ago. So thank you for joining me today. It has been an amazing hour, and I will not keep you any longer. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out or leave a comment below. I will try and answer and try and give you something sensible. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully you'll see me on the next one.